Where did you get that thing?
A coachman brought it.
Who sent it?
He said at the Court of Naples.
I don't want their stupid presents. Illuminated manuscripts, a statue of Hercules the size of an elephant. They never send money.
But isn't this an astronomical instrument, Mr. Galileu?
It's an antique, too. An expensive toy.
What's it for?
It's a map of the sky according to the wise men of ancient Greece. We'll try and sell it to the university. They still teach it there.
How does it work, sir?
Oh, it's complicated.
I think I could understand it.
Maybe. Let's begin at the beginning. Description.
There are a lot of metal rings.
How many?
8.
Correct. And?
There are words painted on them.
What words?
The names of the stars.
Such as?
Well, here's a band with the sun on it. And on the inside band is the moon.
Those metal bands represent 8 crystal spheres, like huge glass globes, one inside the other. The stars are supposed to be tacked onto them. Spin the band with the sun on it. You see the fixed ball right in the middle?
Yes.
That's the Earth. For 2,000 years, man has chosen to believe that the sun and all the host of stars revolve about him. The Pope, the cardinals, the princes, the scholars, the merchants, and the fishwives have all pictured themselves squatting in the middle of an affair like that.
Locked up inside?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a cage.
So you felt that too. But we are pulling out of that old contraption now.
How?
I'd like to think the ships began it. They used to hug the shore. Then all of a sudden they left the coast and launched out onto the oceans. All sorts of things were set in movement, including the minds of men. It was the opening of a new age. In Siena, when I was a young man, I saw some masons trying to lift a block of granite. After talking it over for just 5 minutes, they ditched a method that had been in use for centuries and found a new, more efficient way of applying the ropes.
I remember thinking then, the millennium of faith is ended. This is the millennium of doubt. Everything is called in doubt today. Everybody at last wants to know, why is this, how's that? That's what the books say, but let's see for ourselves.
I predict that in our time, astronomy will become the talk of the marketplace, and that the sons of fishwives will go to school. And with any luck, they'll learn that the earth rolls round the sun, and that the Pope, the cardinals, the princes, the scholars, the merchants, and the fishwives, their mothers, are rolling with it.
The stars must now positively be regarded as spinning rocks hurtling through darkness. It seems clear. This star we live on moves at an inconceivable speed. But are we frightened? No. We are in favor. What does the poet say, Andrea? Oh, early morning.
Oh, early morning of beginnings. Oh, breath of winds that cometh from new shores. But I can see with my own eyes that the sun comes up in one place in the morning and goes down in a different place in the evening. It doesn't stand still. I can see it.
You see nothing. All you do is gawk. Gawking is not seeing. No, that's the sun. Sit down. Where's the sun? On your right or on your left?
On my left.
And how could it get to the right?
Oh, you're putting it there, of course.
Of course. Now, where's the sun?
On my right.
And did it move?
No, I did.
Wrong, stupid. The chair moved.
But I was on it.
Of course. The chair's the earth, and you are sitting on it.
What are you doing with my son, Mr. Galilei?
Mother, you don't understand.
And I suppose you do. Last night he tried to tell me a feather falls as fast as a cannonball.
We seem to be on the threshold of a new era, Mrs. Sargent.
Well, I hope we can pay the milkman in this new era. A young gentleman is here to take private lessons, and he's well dressed, so don't frighten him away like you did the others. Wasting your time with Andrea. How many times have I told you not to wheedle free lessons out of Mr. Galilei? He can't afford it.
Could I finish my milk, even if it isn't paid for? Andrea, I shouldn't talk about our ideas outside.
Why not?
Certain authorities won't like it.
Why not if it's the truth?
The universe of the new astronomers is still not much more than a framework of guesses. So...
I want to be an astronomer. January 10, 1610. Galileo Galilei abolishes heaven.
The edge of the crescent is jagged. All along the dark part, near the shiny crescent, bright particles of light keep appearing, one after the other, and growing larger, and finally merge with the bright crescent.
How do you explain those spots of light, my friend?
It can't be true.
It is true. The high mountains, Segredo.
On the moon.
Yes.
Gigantic mountains. The spots of light are peaks catching the rising sun. The slopes of the mountains are still dark. If you look again, you can see the sunlight moving down from the peaks into the valleys.
But this gives the lie to all the astronomy that's been taught for the last 2,000 years.
Yes. What you're seeing now has been seen by no other man beside myself.
But the moon can't be an Earth with mountains and valleys like our own, any more than the Earth can be a planet.
The moon is an Earth with mountains and valleys. And the Earth is a planet, simply another heavenly body, one among thousands. As the moon appears to us, so we appear to the moon. From the moon, the Earth looks sometimes like a crescent, sometimes like a half globe, sometimes a full globe, and sometimes it's not visible at all.
Galileo, this is frightening. What about Copernicus's theory that the Earth rotates around the sun?
I noticed something through the telescope on Tuesday, which might prove a step towards even that. There are 4 lesser stars near Jupiter. I happened on them on Monday, but didn't take any particular note of their position. On Tuesday, I looked again. I could have sworn they'd moved. I've recorded their positions. Now, they've changed again. Tell me what you see.
I see 3.
Where's the 4th? Here are the charts. Let's get down to work. The 4th must have moved round behind Jupiter where we can't see it. That means there's a small star revolving round a big star.
Jupiter can't be fixed to anything if there's another star revolving round it. Where are the crystal spheres now that the stars are supposed to be fixed to?
Nowhere. There's no scaffolding in the sky. There's nothing holding the universe up. Don't stand there like a stockfish, as if you're afraid it isn't true.
I'm not standing like a stockfish. I'm trembling because I'm afraid it is true.
Why?
What do you think is going to happen to you when you say that there's another sun with other Earths revolving round it? That this Earth is a planet and not the center of the universe. And that there's nothing but stars. No difference between Earth and heaven. No heaven at all. Where's God then?
What do you mean?
God. Where is God?
Not out there, any more than he'd be down here if somebody out there came down to look for him.
Where is he then?
I'm a mathematician, not a theologian.
You're a human being. Where is God in your system of the universe?
Inside us, or nowhere.
10 years ago, a man was burned at the stake for saying that.
Giordano Bruno spoke too soon. He'd never have been burned if he could have backed up what he said with proof.
Do you really believe that proof makes any difference?
All the difference in the world. I believe in man, and that means I believe in reason. Without that belief, I wouldn't have the strength to get out of bed in the morning.
How can you mistake man's contemptible cunning for reason?
I know they call a donkey a horse when they want to sell it, and a horse a donkey when they want to buy it. But is that the whole story? If I were to drop a stone and tell people it didn't fall, do you think they'd accept it? No. The seduction of proof is too strong. In the long run, no one can resist it.
Good morning, Father.
Up so early?
I'm going to Matins with Mrs. Sarti. Ludovico's coming too. How was the night, Father?
Clear?
Yeah, I looked through the tube.
What for? It isn't a toy.
I know that, Father. What did you find?
Some little specks by the side of a big star. I must find a way of drawing attention to them. Perhaps I'll call them the Medicean stars to please the Duke of Florence. By the way, we may move to Florence. I've written to His Highness asking if he can use me as court mathematician.
Shall we live at court, Father?
Galileo.
My dear Sagredo, I must have time to work out my proof, and I need my comforts. My only worry is the Duke may not take me.
Surely he'll take you, Father, with those new stars.
I'm not used to writing letters to important people. Do you think this will do?
With this, I commend myself as one of your most faithful and devoted servants, whose chief desire is to bask in the presence of your Highness, the rising sun of our great age. The Duke of Florence is a boy of 9.
I know. I see. You think my letter is too servile. I wonder if it's servile enough. The only way a man like me can land a decent job is by crawling on his belly. Run along to Matins now.
Galileo, don't go to Florence.
Why not?
It's ruled by monks.
There are scholars, too.
Lackeys.
I'll take them by the scruff of the neck and make them look through my tube. Even monks can be seduced by proof.
Galileo, you're setting out on a road to disaster. You're suspicious and skeptical in science, but in politics you're as naive as your daughter. How can those in power leave a man at large who tells the truth, even about the remotest stars? Can you see the Pope calmly writing down in his diary, 10th of January, 1610, heaven abolished? A while ago, when you were at your telescope, I saw you tied to the stake. And when you said you believed in proof, I smelled burning flesh.
If they'll have me, I'll go. Highness, shall we begin with an observation of the satellites of Jupiter, the Medicean stars?
Sit down here, please.
Thank you, my boy. No, I'm afraid it's not as simple as that. Before we use your celebrated instrument, Mr. Galilei, we beg the favor of a disputation. Subject, can these moons exist?
A formal disputation?
Why don't you just look through the telescope and see for yourselves?
Here, please.
Yes. You are aware that your proposition, that there are stars revolving round some center other than the Earth, that there is nothing holding the universe up, is in contradiction to the wisdom of the ages?
Yes.
Apart from my mathematical friend's reservations as to whether these moons are possible, I, as a philosopher, ask you, are they necessary? Aristoteli, divini, universal.
Shall we speak in everyday language? My colleague, Mr. Ferrazzoni, doesn't understand Latin.
Does that matter?
Yes.
The debate will be less brilliant, but it's your house. The cosmos of the divine Aristotle, with its crystal spheres and their mystical music, is an edifice of incomparable order and beauty. Why should we go out of our way to look for things which can only strike a discord in that ineffable harmony?
Your Highness, would you care to observe these unnecessary and impossible stars through the telescope?
Mr. Galilei, nobody doubts that your brainchild, or shall we say your adopted brainchild, is brilliantly contrived, but one is tempted to observe that if your tube shows something that cannot exist, it must be a rather unreliable tube.
How's that?
With the utmost deference, Mr. Galilei, I suggest that what one sees in your eyeglass and what is in the heavens might be two entirely different things.
Admirably put. Great restraint.
They think we painted the Medicean stars on the lens.
Are you accusing me of fraud?
Yeah, we wouldn't dream of it in the presence of His Highness.
Is there something wrong with my stars?
Your Highness's stars are fine. The gentlemen are only wondering whether they really exist.
Can you see the claws on the great bear?
Yes, and everything on the bull.
Are you gentlemen going to look or not?
Certainly.
What's the matter with you?
They're stupid.
Deplorable child.
Your Highness, I have just received an important message. I think we should go at once.
Gentlemen, the sum of our knowledge is pitiful. It has been my singular good fortune to get hold of a new instrument that brings a small patch of the universe a little bit closer. It's at your disposal. Make use of it.
Your Highness, ladies and gentlemen, where is all this leading?
Are we, as scholars, concerned with where the truth might lead us?
Mr. Galilei, the truth might lead us anywhere.
Your Highness, these nights, all over Italy, telescopes are being turned on the sky. The moons of Jupiter have never been seen before, and yet they exist. The man in the street may conclude that a good many other things may exist if only he opens his eyes. Gentlemen, we oughtn't be defending shaky doctrines.
You are teachers. You ought to be doing the shaking.
I wish your man would keep out of what is supposed to be a scientific debate.
Your Highness, it looks as if we have to go to the shipyards nowadays to find the high curiosity that was the glory of Greece.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Galilei will find admirers in the shipyards.
Is there anything in the world that people won't believe? Yes, Monsignor, that you don't love your belly. Oh, they believe that. They only won't believe what's good for them. They doubt the devil and fill them up with a lot of fiddle-dee-dee about the earth rolling in the gutter like a marble and they swallow it hook, line, and sinker. Sancta simplicity.
The Earth's going round too quickly. May I hold on to you, Professor?
Mother Earth's been at the bottle again.
Venus is listing badly. I can only see half of her behind.
Help! Hope we don't get thrown onto the moon. All those nasty, sharp mountain peaks.
Look now!
Oh, we can't have skinny people in Holy Rome.
What does the Bible say? Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. Can the sun come to a standstill if it doesn't ever move? Does the Bible lie?
How did Christopher Clavius, the greatest astronomer alive, get mixed up in an investigation of this kind?
He's in there, with his eyes glued to that diabolical instrument.
Mr. Galilei, I think something just fell down.
Are you sure, Monsignor, that it didn't fall up?
Insolence.
Aren't they out yet? Can't they reach a decision in this paltry matter? Christopher Clavius ought to know his astronomy after all these years. I hear this Mr. Galilei transfers mankind from the center of the universe to somewhere in the outskirts. This Mr. Galilei is therefore an enemy to mankind and must be dealt with as such. Is it conceivable that God would trust the most precious fruit of his labor to some mere flippity-gibbet of a star? Would he have sent his son to such a place? How can men be so perverse as to listen to something that's told them by some slave of the multiplication table?
The gentleman is over there.
So you're the man. Yeah, my eyes are not what they were, but I can see you bear a striking resemblance to the man we burned. What was his name?
Your Eminence, the doctor said you mustn't excite yourself.
So you have degraded the earth in spite of the fact that you live by her and receive everything from her. Well, I won't have it. I won't be a nobody on some nondescript star, twirling briefly hither and thither. I tread the earth, and the earth is firm beneath my feet. It stands still and is the center of the universe, and I am in the center, and the eye of the Creator is upon me. About me, fixed to the crystal spheres, revolve the lesser lights of the stars and the great light of the sun, created to illumine me that God might see me. Man, the supreme work of God, the central figure, in his own image, created he him immortal and
Your Eminence, you have overtaxed yourself.
Our proposition.
All things that are lighter than water float. All things that are heavier sink.
What does Aristotle say?
Discus latus platusque.
Translate, Fulganzio.
A broad, flat disc of ice floats in water, whereas an iron needle sinks.
Why then, according to Aristotle, doesn't ice sink?
Because being broad and flat, it cannot divide the water.
Very well. I press the ice firmly down to the bottom of the bowl. Now I remove the pressure of my hand. What happened?
It rises to the surface.
Correct. In rising, it seems to be able to divide the water, Fulganzio.
But then why does it float at all? Ice is heavier than water because it is compressed water.
What if it were expanded water?
It must be lighter than water, or it wouldn't float.
Mm-hmm.
Just as an iron needle can't float. All things that are lighter than water float. All things that are heavier sink. QED.
Andrea, you must learn to think carefully. Give me that iron needle. A sheet of paper. Is iron heavier than water?
Yes.
What happened?
It floats. Holy Aristotle! They never checked up on him!
When the Almighty made the universe, he made the earth, and next he made the sun. Then round the earth he bade the sun to turn. That's in the Bible, Genesis 1. And since that time, all beings here below were in obedient circles meant to go. Around the Pope, the cardinals, around the cardinals, the bishops, around the bishops, the ministers, around the ministers, the aldermen, around the aldermen, the craftsmen, around the craftsmen, the servants, around the servants, the dogs, the chickens, and the beggars. Up stood the learned Galileo, glanced briefly at the sun, and said Almighty God was wrong in Genesis chapter 1. And that is, hold my friends, this is no matter small. For heresies could spread at once like bad diseases. Change holy writ, forsooth, what would be left at all? Why, each of us would say and do just as he pleases.
As he pleases.
As he pleases.
Doctors of all the faculties, representatives of all the religious orders of the entire clergy, who have come believing with childlike faith in the word of God as set forth in the scriptures, who have come to hear your holiness confirm that faith. And your holiness is really going to tell them that the Bible can no longer be regarded as the alphabet of truth.
I would not set myself up against the multiplication table, no.
That is what these people say, that it is only the multiplication table. Their cry is, the figures compel us. But where do the figures come from? Plainly, they come from doubt. These people doubt everything. Can society stand on doubt instead of on faith? You are my master. And I doubt whether that is a good arrangement. This is your house, your wife. And I doubt whether they shouldn't be mine. After the plague, after the new war, and after the unparalleled disaster of the Reformation, your dwindling flock is looking to its shepherd. And now these worms of mathematicians choose this moment to turn their tubes upon the sky and announce that your holiness is not the best advice about the heavens either.
This man is the greatest physicist of our time. He is the life of Italy, not just some crank.
Would we have had to arrest him otherwise? Aristotle, whom these renegades otherwise regard as a dead dog, said, if the shuttle were to weave by itself, Masters would no longer need apprentices, nor lords servants. Well, I believe this time's come. This evil man knows what he's doing when he writes his books, not in Latin, but in the language of iron founders and fishwives.
Well, it's certainly not in the best of taste. I'll mention it to him.
The seaports of northern Italy keep insisting they must have Galileo's star charts. Well, we shall have to give in. There are material interests involved.
But the star charts are based on his heretical teachings. We cannot damn the teachings and still use the star charts.
Well, we cannot do otherwise.
Oh, those shuffling feet make me nervous.
May they be more telling than my words, Your Holiness. Shall all these go from you with doubt in their hearts?
But this man has friends. What about France? What about the Viennese court? They will call the church a cesspool of defunct ideas. Keep your hands off him.
Well, actually, we shouldn't have to go very far. He's a man of the flesh. Oh, he gave in very quickly.
Oh, he likes eating, drinking, and thinking more than any man I ever knew. He gets pleasure out of everything. Even his thinking is sensual. He indulges in thinking bouts. He can never say no to an old wine or a new idea. I don't want any condemnation of physical facts. I don't want to hear any battle cries of church, 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 reason, reason, reason. I gave him leave to write his book on condition it ended by saying the last word is not with science, but with faith. He has complied.
But how? His book shows a simpleton propounding the opinions of Aristotle and an intelligent man expressing Galileo's own views. And who makes the concluding remark, Your Holiness?
What? Who states our opinion?
Not the intelligent one.
Oh, these shuffling feet are intolerable. Has the whole world come to me? At the very most, he may be shown the instruments.
That will be enough, Your Holiness. Mr. Galilei understands machinery.